Advisory presentation and hearing. Thank you for coming out on such a snowy night, but then again, you live in Garrett County, so you're used to that. So what we're going to try to do is the superintendent has some opening remarks, and we're going to have a presentation of the committee's report. Then we'll have some public comment. If you've signed up for public comment, please do that so that we can call you up as it is your turn to comment. And we'll try to make this evening go by as quickly as we can, so that if the snow keeps coming, we'll get you home safe again. So without any further ado, I'll introduce Superintendent of Schools, Dr. McCartney. He'll have a few opening remarks.
He'll get that off. Yes, I could just use my teacher voice. Thank you. First of all, thank you all for being out tonight. I apologize in advance. I'm having a little voice trouble today, but hopefully you'll be able to hear me and understand me tonight. We are here to hear the report from the advisory committee, so I'm not going to take a lot of time, but if we go to the next slide, please. This is the proposal. I'm sure you've all seen it. It basically is to relocate Accident Elementary School to this building so that we would have a 5, and then keep the 6th and 7th, so really building a pre-K to 7 building, and then moving the 8th grade into the high school. All of our students from the northern end who in 6th and 7th grade would come to this school. The existing school at Accident, we would, as we do with any school, release that back to the commissioners. Some folks have asked me what will happen to that school, and that really isn't a decision that we make. That goes back to the commissioners. So, on the next slide, here was what I, as superintendent, asked the committee to do. I asked the committee to look at the possibility of this as a transition and to share with me and tonight with all of you what they saw as advantages, disadvantages to help us think through this process. In next month's board meeting, at the February board meeting, I will consider their report. I'll consider input that I've heard, and I will make a recommendation to the board as to how I think we should move forward. The board will then vote in March. So what I'd like to do before we go any further is to introduce all of the members of the committee. I don't know who all was here tonight, but I need to thank them for the time and the effort and the thought that they have put into the report that you're going to hear tonight. The committee was co-chaired by Mrs. Donna Ashby and Mr. Paul Edwards, who are here at the back. I'm just going to read through the names of the committee members. If you want to stand so the board knows who you are, I think that would be good. Mrs. Stephanie Boyd, who is going to be one of our presenters. Mrs. Jess Brown. Dr. Garrett Call, if he is here. Mr. Justin Connor. Miss Miranda Cook. Mrs. Jessica Frotz, Mrs. Amanda Hefner, Mrs. Tara Heinball, Mrs. Jade Morrell. Did I say that correctly? All right, thank you. Mrs. Heather Sanders, Miss Amanda Savage, Miss Amanda Wilburn, not seen her, and Mr. David Yoder. And I would just like to acknowledge to the board, again, the excellent effort, time that the citizens of this area put into considering the proposal. So thank you. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Van Sickle. So I think we are ready for the presentation. So I give you Mrs. Jess Brown and Mrs. Stephanie Boyd, who I know you're all very familiar with, and they shared their draft presentation a while ago. So I'll turn it over to you two ladies. You no longer trust me.
You're automatic. You want to do this quicker? All right. Well, good evening. Okay, so just to reiterate, Dr. McCartney gave our advisory committee, which was a group of 15 community members, GCPS staff members, a charge to look at a variety of different categories in regards to the implementation of the potential of potentially implementing her proposal. So these categories included the enrollment trends, aging condition of buildings, transportation, educational programs, racial composition, financial considerations, student relocations, the impact to the community, and then other factors that the advisory committee came up with. So I just want to let everyone know that this presentation is based on factual information and it does not reflect any of the personal perspectives of the individual members serving on the committee. So looking into our student enrollment trends, so enrollment has been declining over the past several years for our county as well as nationwide. So specifically last year, our Southern enrollment declined by 64 students going from last school year into this current school year. However, the Northern end enrollment has increased by 14 students. And if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, we can look at a couple of these graphs. I know. I'm going to come back to it. So a little bit fuzzy up there, but if you guys do pull up this slide presentation on the computer, you'll be able to see the numbers a little bit better. So going back to 2020 to school year 2020 and 2021, then all the way through this current school year, you can see that the total decrease of student enrollment has been 238 students. However, when we break it down into the schools and the location, the majority of the decrease over the last 4 years have been on the southern end. In regards to the northern elementary schools, we actually had an increase from 2021 school year to this school year of 12 students. However, there is still a decrease within the middle school and high school population on the northern end. On this map as well, you can see that in regards to accident, so from 2020, 2021, we had originally 242 students, and then this current school year, we are sitting at 221 students. We would like to make note that due to the location of private schools in the accident area, we believe that has had a strong influence on the decrease enrollment for that elementary school.
So the next topic we were asked to address included the age or condition of buildings. So Accident Elementary's renovation is estimated at $2.5 million. That includes roof replacement, HVAC system updates, some parking lot resurfacing, sidewalk and light pole replacements, gym floor updates, drainage issues, and window replacements. The Northern Middle School renovation is estimated at $1.2 million to make this school accommodate the age appropriate for the elementary school age. It would require new pre-K classrooms, age-appropriate restroom modifications, and improved health suite and outdoor play and learning spaces. This estimated cost is based on the square footage and previous experiences. Once the Ed Spec Committee gathers and formalizes the layout, the cost is expected to change. And Garrett County currently would be responsible, and the citizens of Garrett County would be responsible for 11% of that final total cost. Based off the facilities and the grounds, at Accident Elementary, there is space we have the agricultural program. There is space for that to be relocated to the middle school footprint. The outdoor space allotment is not comparable to the current space at Accident Elementary, just based off of landscape. The elementary school is very flat, kind of wide open already, so there would need to be some accommodations made there. The current layout of the outdoor play area at the middle school would need to be modified. There are a couple safety concerns that were raised by the committee. That includes the road out here in front of the middle school. Although it's not busy there, it is used for deliveries and things like that. So just being cognizant of kindergartners and pre-K, younger kids that don't necessarily stop, look, and listen, just for safety. As well as the teacher sight line, some things would need to be adjusted just for safety purposes. Space allotment currently is not comparable for the students to have access to a playground, basketball court, and open space for football, kickball, soccer, tag, those wide open spaces like we currently have at Accident Elementary School. The gym does have potential to be divided along with the access to the dance room for elementary and middle PE, which would hopefully accommodate enough physical education space.
Going into transportation, so we will have 3 additional buses in the loop here to serve the students if accident should move to the middle school. This change will actually add an additional 10 minutes of potential school time to each day to be utilized however the administrators feel is necessary. And then the other change would be is GCPS would not need to transport 8th and 9th grade students that are currently being transported from the high school to the middle school and back and forth.
The next topic we were looking at was educational programs and offerings. Currently, Accident is a 5-star school. Northern High and Northern Middle are both 4-star schools based off the state ratings. There will need to be space for pre-K through 7 books and library materials in that media center, while still allowing ample opportunity and continued space for the research component that is vital to the 6th and 7th graders. Title I would be offered to 6th and 7th grade if the school would continue to qualify based off of the federal standards. There are potential expanded educational opportunities for 8th graders, potentially being able to join the fine arts programs at the high school, theater, art, band, chorus, things like that. Technology experiences, JROTC, could be offered to our 8th graders. They may have an opportunity for some micro classes or CTE exposures. And it is possible that more electives could be offered to high school students with the additional staff, but we also want to make sure we note that most of these opportunities are being offered to the 8th graders currently. They're just kind of bouncing back and forth between the schools. So it's the 8th graders are not currently missing out on opportunities. Some opportunities for our 6th and 7th graders would include the potential for some more instructional assistance based off of having a larger volume of adults within the building. They may have access to agricultural programs if we move the agriculture program from Accident Elementary School to the middle school. They would be opportunities for some mentoring opportunities with the older and younger demographic. I know at Accident we currently have a Kinder Buddies program that allows like the 5th graders to go and read to the kindergartners and things like that, those structured opportunities. Potential elementary school opportunities would be some exposure to student government. They could have some access to the science labs that are currently within the middle school. They may have access to some computer science opportunities. The Judy Center resources may be available based off of having some increased space. And then the available outdoor learning space will decrease.
And then looking at racial composition, this will not change. And I know one of the biggest questions that we get into is talking about finances. So the current estimate for the annual savings is approximately $450,000 with this proposal, which that includes eliminating 5 support positions, the cost of the operating the accident facility, and the yearly maintenance and repairs at accident. It should be noted that if we do fix the roof at accident and utilize IAC money, that we are in debt to the IAC essentially for 15 years, and that debt kind of gets eliminated 1/15 every year past that. So. And then our current CIP shows that we need $816,000 in local money for the work needed to be done at accident. So that would actually provide a savings of $270,000 to then be used on other projects that needs throughout the school system. And in here, just to also reinstate that the estimated renovations for Northern Middle is currently at $1.2 million, and our local share would be 11% of that. In regards to student relocations, students will not need to have any temporary relocation, as the 8th graders, the upcoming 8th graders would move directly to the high school, and then the Accident Elementary School students would not relocate to the middle school until the space is ready for them. So they would stay at the current Accident Elementary building until there would be the right time for them to move to the middle school building.
Some of the impacts on the community that we identified as a group were eliminating the dedicated presence in the north for the central office staff. Currently, there is a dedicated office space here at the middle school, and that would need to be eliminated to allow for educational space. The emotional stress on families and children, just with the change that's occurring. The businesses that are in accident could be impacted. There are a couple local the gas station, the little restaurant there, people can pop out there for lunch. Parents stop there when they're on their way to school or on their way home from school, things like that. We would lose indoor and outdoor space for sports, dance, theater, etc. Gym space is a hot commodity in all of our spaces in the middle school included. I know a couple of nights a week, both the cafeterias and the gyms are already pretty well booked solid in the winter, as well as the elementary school gym. So we'd have to adjust for all of those things to continue to offer those to our children. The direct access to the community with field trips. Currently, there are some walking field trips that occur, going to the post office, the library, the town hall, things like that in accident, which could not occur from this location. As well as the PTO structure would change. We do have a strong and very involved PTO, and we actually had been talking about what that would look like moving to the middle school and sort of incorporating those 6th and 7th graders on the northern end, and to be able to offer the continued things that we currently have, how much more money we would need to raise to be able to continue to offer everything that we currently do.
And then other factors the committee came up that we need to be considerate of is safety and emergency preparedness. So we brought up the topic of maybe finding an additional route to 219, just trying to allow a little bit better traffic flow, and the implementation of crosswalks where needed. So maybe some signage letting you know that there's a school, you're coming upon a school area, crosswalks for the young ones, as well as anyone walking from the middle school to the high school. We also wanted to make note that there is no other educational system currently that has a similar model that the accident school will be. Therefore, there's also reason to note that there is no evidence that supports a specific grade band model, that there is one true grade band model that works the best. And we do believe that it is the work inside the building that gives us the best data and education. We are concerned about the emotional maturity of the 8th grade students moving into the high school. And then just making sure that we are able to prepare the 6th and 7th grade students outside of the already established accident students, so Grantsville Route 40 and Friendsville students, to come into a building with other classmates and making them feel, make sure that they're welcomed and they don't feel like they're the outsiders coming in. And then also, it's very important to note that there will be implications on staffing, as there will be support positions eliminated.
So as Dr. McCartney mentioned at the beginning, she gave us our charge to look at the enrollment trends, the age and condition of buildings, transportation, educational programs, racial composition, financial considerations, student relocations, the impact to the community, and other factors. As an advisory board, I feel we did our very best to present all of the information to you. I also wanted to reiterate that this presentation is based on as much factual information that we have, and it does not reflect the personal perspective or opinion of the members that were serving on this committee.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the committee members. Appreciate your time and diligence in looking into a new idea for the northern end of the county. We certainly now will go into public comment. If you have signed up for public comment, we will try to do that as quickly as possible. Garrett County Board of Education is pleased to receive comments and ideas from our public pertaining to the policies, procedures, and/or practices of the school system. We ask that comments be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per individual, unless otherwise considered by the board president. There will be no discussion or action taken at the meeting, but may be considered at a future meeting. Issues that are specific to individual employees should be referred to the immediate supervisor for appropriate consideration and review. Rude, slanderous, or threatening remarks or other behavior that is disruptive or interferes with the order of the meeting will not be permitted. So once again, each person has 3 minutes. We do not discuss any of the information tonight. This is an information gathering session only. So certainly we encourage each and all of you that want to speak to take your moment in time. The first and the only topic is yes. And I should reiterate as well, the only topic that we can discuss or listen to tonight has to do with the northern area proposal. So any other topic is off the floor tonight. The first speaker is Barb Law.
Good evening. I'm Barb Law, a retired Garrett County educator, but more importantly, a parent of 2 children who were products of Accident Elementary School. I now have 2 grandsons who attend Accident Elementary and are becoming exceptional Husky pups. Accident has been and is still one of the best schools in Garrett County. This school, because of its great staff and loving atmosphere, gives children the foundation they need to succeed not only in the classroom, but also later in life. Look at the scores. Look at the achievements of Accident graduates. Look at this place before you choose to destroy it. I'm still friends with many teachers in the school system. Many are afraid to speak their minds because of fear of retaliation. I have heard privately that having the 7th and 8th graders at Southern High School has been a nightmare. Many do not think 7th and 8th graders should be in the same building as 11th and 12th graders. Many staff members are unhappy about the situation, but they will never say so publicly. One person even said, and quote, "It was like having a bunch of feral cats running around," unquote. The introduction of this developmental stage children into high school would be the equivalent of moving our high school children directly into a college setting, a decision that is not likely to serve the majority well. Before you choose to close Accident, there needs to be a little more time to look at what may not be working. Just because the Southern end has chosen to take this drastic measure and experiment with their children doesn't mean the northern end has to follow and make a bad mistake. If the decision is to save money, it's a poorly conceived plan. Rarely in the business world do you find savings in destroying the portions of your business which are performing best. Maybe you should be looking more into the reasons for your success in highest performing schools. With Accident and Crellin, the county's consistently high scoring schools, the answer is heavily tied to the family and community and staff support of its students in school. The perceived impression of the board's watering down of achievement and excellence in our schools is at least partially responsible for the significant loss of students to alternate schools in recent years, and there will likely be a continued loss of students to the alternative schools as parents try to digest this decision. I love Accident School, and I am so glad my children had, and now grandchildren have the opportunity to attend there. Please think of the lives you are touching when you make this decision, that you will not only affect them now, but these decisions will follow them into their future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Stephanie Spano Wilson.
I want to thank you for letting me have the opportunity here to speak today. My name's Stephanie. I'm the mom of two, soon to be 3 kids in the Accident elementary school system, and I hope that my comments are taken into consideration today. Research will show you just how important stability is in a child's life, and even more in young children's lives. School is hard enough as it is, and closure, relocation, whatever you call it, today we're discussing about uprooting an entire school of elementary age children, mixing those children with puberty age children, which one can only imagine the negative impacts of, and cutting middle school children a year short, throwing them into high school a year before they're mentally prepared for it. It does not matter if the very best is done to relocate versus close. I have a big list of changes that will happen, but the point is that it's going to be a huge change regardless, and that even if we relocate 90% of the things that they know and love, it's going to be big. They still lose their sense of safety and familiarity. The relationships will be severed. Things will be different in a lot of ways, and it will not be the same. Stability will be crushed. I understand, though, that sometimes change is necessary. In fact, in the last meeting that I attended, there were a lot of good answers, such as the kind that I need in life because I hate change. The kids will be fine, we will be fine, and it will be fine. Maybe we will find a way to make it as good as it was, maybe. After everything I've seen and heard, though, I just keep coming back to the same question, which is why? If it isn't broken, why fix it? Like change, sometimes fixing is necessary, but in this situation, Accident Elementary is not broken. Yes, like nearby schools, it has financial issues, it needs work, but it is thriving, it is successful, a beautiful school on a one-of-a-kind piece of land. I hear the class sizes are smaller, but personally with my children, have seen them growing. I said I wanted to see those numbers, but I actually saw that tonight. Looking at the big picture, I just cannot see how this school is broken. Research shows that closing or relocating a school is often considered unethical, as it often results in the disruption in students' education, can negatively impact the community, may deprive students of prior resources, cause them anxiety and social disconnect, and have a negative impact on their academic achievement and so forth. Because of that, deciding to relocate a school or close a school should be at least a last resort option that should only be considered if all alternatives have been exhausted and the decision is made with consideration of the students and the families impacted. I wish that the community had a vote in this. As a financial professional myself, I understand that money is very important, but sometimes the financially easy solution is not the right one. What about the ethical solution? Have we exhausted all other options to make this the best solution? It seems easy to be an outsider and look at the financial factors and call it a great idea and tell people that it will be okay. However, for those personally involved, looking beyond the budget, I see this situation as unnecessary and the unethical breaking up of what we consider as a family and a second home for our kids. So yes, we will find a way to make it fine because that's our job, we're parents. But have we exhausted all other options? Is it the right choice? Have we considered the impact that this closure or relocation has to make this a truly ethical decision? And is the damage that this may cause worth the financial gain? Thank you.
Well done. Tara Crawford.
Hello, everybody. I have just some scrawled notes. I'm not nearly as organized as my predecessor, Miss Stephanie. She did a beautiful job, and I would echo so much of what's already been said about Accident Elementary. I know many of you have heard this before. Many of you have visited the school. We appreciate that so much. Currently have one son here at Northern Middle and one son at Accident. And one thing that comes to mind immediately that I'm not sure, it was mentioned in the presentation tonight, tonight, but I don't know how much it's being explored. Major concern for me is the traffic pattern here. Not only Garrett Highway and, the double lane, pulling in, pulling out, but the pickup and drop off. I'm not sure if you all realize how many students we have at accident that are private transportation. I don't know the number myself, but I know it's a big number. And I think that needs to be a consideration set. Certainly the parking lot here is adequate for what's going on now, but if it changes, that could be a pretty tremendous expense. And I'd also just bring safety, and emergency services, the possibility that could be necessary at some point. God, I hope it's not. But if it were to become necessary, what does that look like? And are we talking to those emergency service professionals and understanding how they would handle getting in, getting out? Beyond that, I understand that Northern Middle is also a big factor. We're not just talking about accident, we're talking about bringing more students here. Perhaps a derivative or a reason for that could be that weighted student funding brings more students into this building, which, as I understand, is completely run on electric heat, which is very expensive. When the very first time I ever attended a Board of Education meeting, I asked a question, I think it was related to a roof, about the possibility of solar panels and what solar panels could do to facilitate a less expensive, not more expensive, a less expensive roof repair. I did some really brief research, and I actually found 5 programs through, where's that note? Through the Maryland Energy Administration that are specific to schools in an effort to alleviate the expense of solar panels being utilized. And so I think that, when Stephanie mentions exhausting all options, that would be something to consider. For sure. Not only renewable, but hopefully less expensive. And it's bright and sunny up here on the hill. Beyond that, blueprint, which Dr. McCartney and I have discussed, is legislation. Legislation can change. Legislation can be amended. Closing a school cannot. Just today, there was an article published in the Washington Post entitled "Calls to Adjust Maryland Blueprint for Schools Grow Amid Budget Concerns." And on the 2nd of January, there was another article in a local paper downstate. Governor Moore puts a pause on the blueprint for Maryland's future education spending plan. So I'd ask you to consider the possibility of those changes as we move forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Brenda Skipper.
Yeah, it is. Good evening. I'm Brenda Skipper, and probably all know I oppose the school consolidation along with so many people of this community. I think it's a bad idea, and I hope our words don't fall on deaf ears. My children attended Accident, and it's a fine school. My son was in special ed there. There he is now, 9th grade. He's a heck of a kid, and I think Accident helped shape him into that. This, of course, isn't just my opinion. Well, about my kid it is, but about Accident. I saw online today that U.S. News and World Report said that out of 854 elementary schools in Maryland, that Accident ranks 199th, and a 5-star school in Garrett County from the Maryland State Department of Education. Of course, we all know this, but what I don't understand is why the county wants to take a trophy and throw it in the trash. Its closure won't really affect my children because they're in middle and high school, but it'll affect so many other young, eager minds who need what Accident has to offer. The staff and students have worked hard to create a 5-star environment to nurture the future of our county, state, and world. If my children were still young, I would not hesitate to look for an alternative if the consolidation is approved. I have worked in classrooms at Accident, Northern Middle, and high school, and saw most of them were brimming with students. I've also driven school buses that were becoming overcrowded with students, and that can be hard to manage and dangerous. I know it's all about the money. It always is. Not necessarily about educational quality teacher workload, or school bus safety. It's not about jobs. As you guys know, a few years ago, I was running for the Board of Ed, and an elderly gentleman told me, despite whatever fight I may give to oppose such things as closures and consolidation, it doesn't necessarily matter. And I believe that. And things don't always work out like we want. And I've heard that 7th and 8th grade students at Southern must rent lockers if they don't want to carry their books all day, since they're not official high school students. Some parents can't afford the fee to rent a locker. If plans were made for this consolidation, why aren't the students given a locker? Their school is closed by no fault of their own, and they should be given a locker. Carrying a heavy book bag around all day can cause muscle strain, poor posture, and scoliosis. It sounds like poor planning for the good of our children that will most likely be carried down to the northern end as well. If something as simple as a lack of lockers can be overlooked, what else will be missed if this consolidation goes through? I got one more sentence. Can I read it?
You're good. Go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead and finish.
There are other solutions that would take time, but would be more beneficial to everyone than always putting the burden on our children's education. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Boyd.
This one, right? Hi there. So when looking at quality improvement or process improvement plans, one of the prime framework or methodologies that is used is the PDSA cycle, or a Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle. So what we have done in the past, as I've been following along the last couple of years, we did plan for the Southern grade band alignment. We did enact the Southern grade band alignment. However, what we have not fully done or has not been publicly made aware is the full study result. We currently do not have any test results or data that supports that what we did was successful, positive or negative. We just don't know at this point. Completing the entire cycle helps to avoid jumping to conclusions. It helps to identify solutions. It helps to identify where we do not have enough evidence or analysis. It also helps us to learn from our mistakes and failures and to refine the process. One of the things that I would respectfully ask that we do is the full iteration of the PDSA cycle before we move on to making more changes for our school system. The things that we are changing are our children's lives, their communities, the community as a whole, our relationships, our teachers' lives, not just some widget that can be recoded and fixed very easily. Once this decision is made, it will impact everyone on the northern end, every child that is attending Accident Elementary School, not just their lives today, but their lives tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Chelsea Warnick.
On Wednesday, October 25th, 2023, I attended an event at Garrett College Performing Arts Center called Not My Kid, with keynote speaker Stephen Hill. How to build resilient kids and make healthy choices and overcome adversity. That was the tagline on the flyer I saw posted by the Garrett County Health Department. This event was for parents, guardians, and community members, as Mr. Hill has already spoken at both Northern Middle and High School and Southern Middle and High School. The event wasn't very well attended. A handful of people scattered throughout the large auditorium and listened as Mr. Hill told us his own story of overcoming adversity. Long story short, Stephen Hill was raised in a wealthy family with multiple siblings and loving parents. He excelled at sports, so much so that in middle school, he was given special permission to play on the high school sports teams. This meant that he had early ongoing exposure to kids much older than him. He practiced with the older boys, played with the older kids, and was eventually and inevitably invited to the high school parties, where one thing led to another, and he found himself drinking alcohol, smoking weed, selling drugs, and eventually immersed in a world of crime and addiction. Stephen stopped in the middle of his story to tell us that he had heard about the Garrett County had proposed grade band realignment on the southern end of the county, and he shook his head as he told us to fight it. You see, he attributes his life of adversity to early and ongoing exposure to kids much older than him. So how do we build resilient kids to make healthy choices and overcome adversity? Well, there are a lot of ways. We have many teachers, parents, guardians, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and community members who will be sure that our children know how to make healthy choices. But I believe the first step is not creating an adversity at a very important transitional and developmental time period for our students. I ask of you to please keep our school structure intact as it is before you find yourself with a public education crisis of parents who respond, "Not my kid," when asked who all attends your public schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry Rodehaver.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm a lifelong resident of Garrett County. I'm a public school system product, as are my kids and now my grandkids and great nephews, some of which attend Accident, but not all. You know, and one of the things that we've talked about at our house is the fact that when I went to school, probably Rodney too, 7 through 12, we were all together. We turned out fine, but, today we're a different society than we were 50 years ago. It makes a difference. I think culturally things have changed, socially things have changed. And so, I would be concerned about that too, as well. But I don't envy your position having to make this decision. I've spent my life in healthcare administration at a corporate level. Sometimes you have to make the tough call, and it's hard to do, and you don't make any friends that way. But I'd ask that you think about these couple of things. Governor Moore has spoken about the current budget deficit in Maryland and how the blueprint plan is likely going to look a little different. I think that affords us time as a community to maybe reconsider where this might be headed, or at least look at additional options. And so we need to, I think, take advantage of the time that we've been afforded. Back to the day when I attended Accident Elementary School, it has been a high performer for literally decades, regardless of how that's measured, whether it was individual standardized testing scores of students or the rankings that exist now. It's been a high performer. And so I struggle with the fact that that school would be at the bullseye of an effort or initiative to maybe change that. I just think it seems to lack a lot of logic in my mind. I, as a professional, have recruited medical providers and healthcare executives to this area, and without exception, I talked about the quality of the Garrett County schools when I'm trying to draw professionals, highly educated people into this area. The schools were always a topic of my consideration, and made sure that they understood what kind of public education their kids were going to get if they chose to relocate to this area. I'd hate to see that change. I think it is changing with the advent of other private schools, and that's a wonderful thing. I would question where capital funds are being directed in addition to the potential renovations to make this necessary. I think, there's opportunity to maybe reevaluate the big picture in terms of where capital funds are being funneled at this point. So I'd like us to look at those priorities as well. Thank you.
Janine, I'm not going to butcher up your last name. Apologize.
That's all right. Janine Al-Salam.
Okay,
Hi.
thank you.
Hi. My name's Janine. I'm a newcomer to Garrett County, and my husband and I moved here in 2020, accidentally, no pun intended. We thought we'd come for a little while.
Well done, though.
You know, when the pandemic hit Washington, D.C., we grew up in arguably one of the best school districts in the country in Fairfax County. And when we came here, we kind of, you know, a couple of weeks became a couple of months, became let's shop for houses. And we didn't think we would stay once our kids hit school age because we were pretty concerned about the schools. And frankly, that's what everyone who back home, they were like, really? Like, you like it there? Cool. You can go hiking, but what about the schools? And we started to look into it and we said, no, Accident's a 5-star school. And we visited the campus, and you can say that, you know, a lot of the culture is going to come with Accident to the middle school, but that campus, it is gorgeous, right? It's the same thing that I fell in love with, all of the natural beauty around here, the farmland. Fast forward, we have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in building a bakery here, Wild Ember Bread. And the reason why we've done that is because as we started to get to know this community, we surrounded ourselves with a circle of other young families. Almost everyone in our community are young families who are building businesses, Rodney's children included, who have either young children that are just entering the elementary school, or they are pregnant or planning to become pregnant in the future. This isn't just my story. We believe that this is an economic trend. There are articles all the time. I sent some of them to a few of you that there is a massive influx of young families moving from cities to rural areas and to smaller communities. The population of school-age children nationally is down. The number of elementary schools and middle schools across the entire country is up. Other districts are not making this kind of choice. The population is becoming more distributed, right? But we're leaning into our community schools, and people who are coming from cities like I did are falling in love with that. So I definitely don't think that we would have necessarily made the same decision to build a business here if we hadn't fallen in love with the community and seen the potential that this community has to attract young families. So I would love to see kind of an alternative conversation here. How can we attract more young families? How can we fund this differently? Obviously, budgets have, you know, they need to be addressed, but with all of the points that have been said here, maybe the blueprint will change. Maybe there's a different way to fund things with the rental tax and things like that. I've heard a lot of these questions come up, but not a lot of answers. One other note, I only have 5 seconds, but you know, in terms of bringing the beauty of Accident to the Northern Middle School, I work as a software executive, and in the last 10 years that I've worked there, we have acquired 20 different companies. So we're all about mergers and acquisitions, but the reality is you lose the culture. You lose staff that helped build the original business. There's no way they'll stay past a couple of years. There is going to be a risk that we will lose teachers, we will lose families. It is really difficult to integrate cultures when you're merging two organizations, and look, private companies do it all the time for financial reasons, and ultimately private companies figure out a way to come out on top. But that is a very different decision when it comes to our children who don't really have choice in the district that they live, and the future of their education. So thank you.
Thank you. Diane Hernandez? No comment? Okay, thank you. And our last comment is Jess Brown.
So I just want to speak on a couple different things. So first off is the enrollment. So as the advisory committee, as we presented this evening, that the northern end, we have seen some growth. We are now looking into implementing a new housing program in the Grantsville area, as well as one in the McHenry area in the upcoming years. So hopefully that's going to bring more affordable housing, allowing families to stay local, or our graduates to stay in the area, to help increase that enrollment here on the northern end. Also, something to consider is COVID happened 4 years ago, and during that time there was a little bit of a baby boom that followed that. If you looked into some of the research in regards to the birth statistics from our local hospitals, even looking over into Ruby, that they are each year having record-breaking birth numbers. So we don't have those census numbers because, of course, census was in 2020. So there is still that potential for enrollment to increase should more families stay locally and also be drawn to the beautiful area that our county has. So my concern then would be, should we relocate and put everybody into this building? Because we will have all 6th and 7th graders on the northern end, will we run into an overcrowding. Once we close the school building, we're not going to be able to turn around and reopen that building. So once we make this decision, that is a permanent decision for an extended period of time. Also, I want to talk a little bit about PTO. So I am Accident Elementary's PTO president. So we have a wonderful structure at Accident, very involved families, and we do a lot to give back to our students as well as teachers and staff. So I want to explain a little bit of the financial structure. So currently we operate about a $15,000 to $16,000 budget. Inside of that, we provide $30 per student to cover field trip costs, as well as we gave every teacher and leading staff member a $100 Amazon gift card to help fund things that they need for their classroom. And should we merge and be here with all 6th and 7th grade students in the northern area, of course, we're not going to leave them out and say PTO is only going to cover this pre-K 3 through 5th grade. So looking at if we want to maintain our current funding projects that we have at the elementary school, we're going to be needing to fundraise an additional $15,000 to $20,000 to cover those students. So that is a hefty thing for parents and community members and businesses, as we are always reaching out and asking for donations and help to consider. And then last thing that I would like to talk about is getting the input from some of our 7th graders, because should this go forward, our 7th graders are going to be the first directly impacted. I was curious, it's like we hear a lot of feedback from the adults and parents, but where are the student inputs? What about the 7th grade feelings? So I reached out to a couple families, some families reached out directly to me, and one common theme that I'm finding in our 7th graders is they have a lot of anxiety moving into the high school. They came in wanting to they want to have that last year here at the middle school. They're involved, they're making those connections. They know their teachers here. I know someone's made a comment about the theater program. They want to stay at this one versus moving on to the high school theater program. So just making sure that we do look out into our students' opinions and making sure we're getting their voices heard as well, and not just the adult community. So I encourage you guys all as board members and our elected members to do your due diligence and listen and hear your community's concerns, and if there's any other alternatives, to maybe evaluate them as well. So thank you so much.
Last call. Anyone else want to sign up? Well, thank you for coming out on a snowy night. We do appreciate it. We would like to offer to each of you an opportunity to tour the building. We will certainly attempt to show you how the building could be devised in such a way as to accommodate older students in the building or younger students in the building as well. And so if you want to take advantage of that, we encourage you to do it. If not, perhaps we'll have another evening. It's a little nicer that we can invite you to come back again to take a look at those as well. So once again, on behalf of the Board of Education and Superintendent, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for the professionalism by which we are looking at this decision. It is certainly not an easy decision for any of us as well, as it is, I'm sure, for many of you. But our charge is to do what's best for all 3,400 students in Garrett County, and that's what we'll try to do as we look at everything as a whole.